Alrighty, guys, we'll get it rocking and rolling here. Good morning, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about the title I came up with was selling outside the box. So this is a little bit of a play on words. Not only is it selling outside the box and selling maybe outside your geographical area, but getting creative in times like these. Obviously, we're in a little bit different, maybe a challenging market, so to say. And, it's important to get creative, think outside the box, and sell outside the box. So, with that being the case, we obviously wanted to sit down with all of you and have a mastermind discussion on ways we can get creative and kind of extend our reach as realtors. So to kick it off, Thong, do you mind sharing how you've gotten creative lately? You and Jim Penny, I know, are working on, extending your reach and branching outside of the greater Harrisburg area.
Yeah, it's the name of the game is to get listings. And in our area, there's only so many listings that sell every year. It fluctuates a little bit, but it never goes skyrocketing like double or triple or anything like that. So we're talking maybe a few hundred here and there difference. So one of the things you have to do is possibly expand your territory a little bit, maybe drive a little further for that listing. Um, and in years past, when I've helped other agents secure listings outside of our area, I would sit down and we would go over um, the area and what do you know about the area? Okay. And one of the things we've done in the past was sit down and look at potential neighborhoods that people would move into that listing, right? So same school district, maybe something in the lower price range, just to show the seller that we know the area. Okay. So one of the early things I did, and this was even before Bright, this was when we had Paragon up here. You go into past listings that sold within the last year. So if you're going on a listing for a 700K house, right? Who's the most likely buyer for that house? Probably somebody in that 300, 400K range, right? So we would go in and look at houses that sold in that school district or within 5 mile radius of that particular subject. And we would get the names of the neighborhoods from those, that 300, 400 range. And we would plug it into our marketing and say, we're going to market this neighborhood and that neighborhood. So when we showed up, the homeowner would be like, wow, you're from Harrisburg, but you know all these neighborhoods in Lebanon, right? So it makes us look like we know what we're talking about. And it certainly helps you because now you have a start on your marketing. So that's something that we used to do. The other thing that we've done lately too, whenever we go, let's say into the Philly market, you have to know what their customary due diligences are, right? For example, in the Philadelphia area, if you write an offer for a buyer, you have to include a buyer financial information sheet. Okay, that's in our zip forms. That's a par form. And actually, it's a really good form if you ever sit down with a first-time home buyer and you ask them to fill it out, they just fill it out for you. Okay. And it talks about all their finances, their debt to income, what kind of monthly payment uh, in debt they are with cars, credit cards, stuff like that, how much cash they have in hand. Do they need gift money and who's giving it to them, the availability of it. So anytime you present an offer in the Philadelphia and actually even the Allentown area, they'll require it. Okay. Um, if you're selling in the Philadelphia area, you might have to do a certificate of occupancy. See, in our area, we only need it when we sell new construction, right? Right before settlement, the builder applies for it and you get it. But in the Philadelphia area, you have to have it on every sale, resale too. And it may also require an inspection, two inspections from the township, and then from the fire department as well to make sure the smoke detectors are actually in. I know Lower Paxton is big on that with just a form, right? But in these areas, they actually come out and check it. So you just have to know the customary documents, and it's easy because all you have to do is just ask. Generally, if you're working in a co-broke situation with an agent out there, they're usually pretty willing to help you as well, but you just have to ask. Or my suggestion is if you take a listing, call that township and municipality and just say, what are your customary due diligence for a buyer and a seller? Okay, so those are the types of things that you have to be aware of.
Yeah, thanks, Kong. There's definitely a good bit to unpack, I think, with that. Like obviously, if you're going to extend your reach, a lot of good ways to do it is to go for the listings. They are one, the name of the game, but they are also less time consuming and less demanding on your end for actually physically being in that location. So, for example, my mom and I have taken a couple listings down in media as well, you know, close to that Philadelphia area. And you really you can almost cut your trips down there to about two appointments. You know, one your listing appointment, and you can schedule a photographer after that, but you take your sign, your lockbox with you, and then have the agent bring the sign and lockbox to settlement and closing. So you're really down there almost only two times. It's really not that bad to get a sizable check for selling real estate outside your area. Um,
With that being said, Brooks, how far is media from our office?
that was what, Mom, about an hour and a half?
Maybe an hour and 45 tops from
And and why did you do that and not refer it out?
Because of the price point. The
Okay.
prices down there are
And,
definitely steeper than where they are or the same size house in our area. So it was worth our time to
and
make
it's
that trip.
also in Bright, right? It's a
Yes. Yeah.
Bright marketplace. So the fact that it's a little further than we normally go, but it's in the Bright MLS market area, and the price range was significant enough that if you're going to list it and let everybody else sell it, it was worth expanding your market territory, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then Kong, they did two in media. Did you do one in media too?
Yes, we've actually done a few for one client that will not list with anybody else but us. So he
Okay.
trusts us with everything.
S-
And it's not that hard. I know the driving is a detriment, but it's only an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Um, and to get a paycheck with just 2 or 3 visits, it's worth it.
Right.
And
So
not,
go
Tim,
ahead.
not only that, they bought that house in media with us, and a year and a half later got a transfer to the Allentown area, so we were able to list it and sell in Allentown. So that listing came because we worked it, and we ended up with 3 deals out of that.
So when you have a serious buyer or seller that wants to buy something outside of our comfort zone, but still in Bright MLS, we were able to capitalize on 3 or 4 deals, because if you guys did 3 and Kong did 1, we did 4 deals in Media, Pennsylvania, which is an hour and a half away from our office. So,
Tim, actually, 2 years ago, right after COVID, I got a call from a past client up here. It was an attorney that we dealt with, and it was her assistant. And she said, Kong, can you come down to Philadelphia and sell this house that my uncle just passed away and we just need to get rid of it. We don't care. We just need to get rid of it. So I went down there, looked at the house. It was like $70,000. Okay. And I was about to refer it out and give it free to another agent. But then I started looking around the neighborhood and looked at the comps, and I noticed, again, because we have Bright, we're all in the same system. I noticed that everything sold around there that was a rehab sold with cash. And there was only like 2 agents that sold there, represented buyers. So I told the seller I would do it for a flat rate of $6,000. Okay, that's it, 6,000. And I ended up just calling the 2 agents that had buyers with cash that had history of sales. And one of them just said, no, I'm not interested. But the other one said, I'll take it. And if you get me in the door beforehand, you can have the whole commission. All 6,000. I don't need it. And we put the deal together. He settled in 2 weeks and we're done. $6,000. But
Yep.
you just have to do a little research and a little looking around and maybe a few phone calls, but it could be lucrative for you rather than just me giving that thing away. And at 70,000, it's almost like you don't want to even ask for a referral. It's so tiny, right? You just give it away to somebody down there. But by just doing a little bit, that made us $6,000.
And not to continue just asking you questions, but this area that you and Jim Penny are working on right now, that's also an hour and a half away from the office. Okay. It's up to 100 units you could control, correct? New builds?
Correct.
Okay. Now, people would be like, well, that's crazy. I'm not driving an hour and a half. But you got to think, what if you assembled as part of your team agents to handle that in that area that affiliated with our office? There's major builder developers out there that cover multiple states. How do they do it? You just have to think about, hey, if I have this opportunity that I can sell 100 new builds in an area that's an hour and a half away, all I have to do is figure out the systems I need to put in place and the plan I need to put in place in order to do that. So all we're simply saying is, don't think so small and in your box. Think out of the box, which I hate that phrase, but it's true. Think out of the box as to what you can do and what you're willing to do in order to get more business in a challenging market. For instance, Joe, we have a number of agents in our office that are licensed in Maryland. A significant number of the Chambersburg agents are licensed in Maryland, but yet we have some in the Mechanicsburg office licensed in Maryland also. Joe Schutz, if you don't mind sharing, what was the reason last year you wanted to get licensed in Maryland, and why did you do it, and for what price range home was it?
Well, I did it because it takes minimal effort. We have reciprocity in Maryland. So if you're licensed in Pennsylvania, all you have to do is make application and you are licensed in Maryland and you pay the fees. That's all it takes. The reason why I did it is because one of my best friends was considering making a purchase down in the Havre de Grace area. It's, hour, 10 minutes, 15-minute drive, pretty drive in the country. We went down there, we looked at it. There was some interest. He ended up not purchasing there, purchasing elsewhere, but it was easy to do. And the price point was, it was going to be a $700,000 purchase. So for a, $18,000 commission, it cost me $100. So that's a worthwhile investment for me.
Yep. Thank you for sharing with us on that. I know Kara and Stacy, Kara, you have a license in Maryland also, right? Now you're a lot closer to the Maryland line than we are, but is that the same reason why you've expanded your market territory into the Maryland marketplace also?
It is very much the same. In fact, Joe, I smiled whenever you said that. My first deal I ever did in Maryland was for a friend that was selling in Havre de Grace. I mean, and so she called and she asked if I could help her and in the future. And I said, yeah, let me get it together and then I'll be able to help you.
Good. Regina, are you on the call?
Yep,
Hello?
I'm here.
So when you were living in Coudersport, Pennsylvania, and your best friend wanted to buy a house in Pittsburgh, did you sell it to her?
I did.
And how did you do that?
We just went down and looked at houses and found something, and at that time it wasn't as crazy as it is now. There were lots of choices and there wasn't multiple offers, but yeah.
But it was a big sale, wasn't it?
It was
for
a
you?
big sale. Yeah, I mean, this is a while back. It was like a $500,000 sale, so it was definitely worth it.
Yeah. And that's why you did it. That's why you traveled out of the area to do that. And I'm sure there's lots of us that have done that too. The whole point of this call is in a challenging market, we've got to be willing to adjust our marketplaces a little bit in order to get business rather than give it all up. If it's feasible, if it's feasible. Anybody else have a story they'd like to share with regards to doing something out of the area? If not, I'll tell you a story I had.
Tim, I'm sorry, my camera is not working on my phone, but
That's okay.
I will say that yes, with Kara, I do have my Maryland license, and when I got mine, it was because I was in this process of trying to think outside of the box, and it kind of organically led me to Maryland, because I decided that I would look at who I always communicate with over the years. And I recognized that like all of the groups that I had been with had always been the same. Like whether it was a community group, whether it was a book club group, like I had been with these people for 10 plus years. So my outside of the box thinking was trying to figure out who was the new group or community meeting or whatever that I could get involved with on a minimal scale so that I wasn't constantly in meetings. But through that, I got a lead on a listing in Maryland, and I panicked because I didn't have my Maryland license, but I basically got it as fast as I could. And that was last year. And so through that, Maryland produced four deals last year and already one deal this year, just from figuring out. I knew I wasn't going to lose those people that I had been friends with and communicating with for 10 years, but it was time for me to figure out who was the next set of people that I needed to get in touch with.
Good job. My little story happened back in 1997. I was trying to secure land for a company called Balance Care Corporation to build assisted living facilities across the country. So what I would do, in this particular case, it was in Hagerstown, Maryland, was I tried to get a realtor to work with in Hagerstown, Maryland, and I couldn't get anybody that was willing to take the time to help me find a location for Balance Care. So I got in the car one weekend and I drove down to Hagerstown, Maryland, and looked around, and I found a location that would work for them to build an assisted living facility. I called the listing agent, got the information on it, presented it to Balance Care Corporation. At that point, I handed the deal off to their attorneys, who created an agreement of sale and sent it to the listing agency and their attorneys. And when they created the agreement of sale, they put in the agreement of sale that the buyer would pay me a finder's fee, and it was a $525,000 sale. So in 1997, 1997, that was a big sale. But I got a $525,000 sale in Hagerstown, Maryland, got paid a finder's fee for a $525,000 piece of land to build an assisted living facility, just because I was, one, willing to make the effort, and two, found a way to do it. So again, Joe, Stacy, Kara, Brooks, Kong, Kathy, everybody that has volunteered on this call to explain how they have made the extra effort, thought outside of the box. They were willing and able to capitalize on commissions that were outside of our normal marketplace. So it's just an idea of something we wanted to come up with this call, to just say to you, don't walk away from business if it's a possibility, And Brooks, anything else you'd like to add to that?
Just a little bit of like adding the pre-qualifying questions, make sure they're your A+ clients, that saves you a lot of time. And do your homework, get to know those local forms, state forms, if it's Maryland. If it's in Bright, great. If it's outside of Bright, you're gonna have to, get the local board and whatever MLS they use. Aaron, can you add a little bit? What specifically is the Maryland licensing reciprocal requirements?
So for most people, Maryland goes without a hitch. We've had a couple agents where for some reason they get stuck in the system, but it's pretty easy. I have a sheet to follow. Troy Burkholder had just reached out about doing it. So it's super easy. It's $90. You have to go into your PALS account through Pennsylvania for your real estate, and you have to request a certificate of licensure history. And you have to, and all this is in my instructions, but you have to do it and have it emailed directly to Maryland, because it has to be in their system or they will not take it. So after they receive that, then they typically issue the license. They send it to the broker, and it's a PDF. It's good for 2 years from the time you get it. In order to get Maryland forms, you have to actually join the Maryland Board of Realtors as a secondary member. So that is around $230, I think, for the year. They do prorate it. So, and then you get them added in zip forms, which, again, a little bit more of a process. Zip forms isn't that quick to get them in, but usually about, 2 weeks you can get them added in. But yeah, it's pretty easy, pretty inexpensive. So if it's worth it, to you to do.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Kara.
I have a question about continuing ed, since we're in that part, right now is the time frame to be doing that. Is there anything that we need to do, those of us that are licensed in Maryland, since that's so new for me, and I'm doing the continuing ed right now, is there anything additional that needs to be done for Maryland that you know of, or anything that we need to send to them to say, hey, I'm still good?
Not that I'm aware of. Honestly, I think that because it's a reciprocal, as long as your license is active in Pennsylvania and you do your Pennsylvania continuing ed, because we're reciprocal, like when you get your Maryland license, you don't have to do any education or anything like that. So as long as you're renewing your Pennsylvania and you're doing your 14 hours of required, then you should be fine.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We should all start really working hard on either doing our continuing ed classes in person or online, and getting them out of the way and not wait till May. So that's something that's on my agenda to get done too.
I already started. Tim, did you?
That's something that's on my agenda to get started soon. In addition to that, let's not forget that February 14th, we're going to have our awards luncheon at the West Shore Country Club. It is on Valentine's Day. Hopefully our office manager will make sure that all the ladies are taken care of with some sort of special little gift that day for lunch to make them feel special, since it's Valentine's Day. But if you get a chance, please sign up with Aaron for that event. Again, it's going to be the awards luncheon. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I'll send out an actual invite. I sent out like a save the date.
Okay.
So, but I'll send out an invite for everybody to RSVP.
Anybody else have any questions, comments that they'd like to bring up before we close up the meeting?
Just if you do get a listing in the outer area and you need help, please feel free to come up and talk to me. We'll sit down and develop a marketing plan that you're comfortable with and you can present to the seller.
Yep. And if you have to, in all seriousness, as Brooke said, ask a lot of questions and talk to agents in that area and just ask them, is there anything special I need to do within the township or borough or city in order to comply, to make sure you're doing everything right? Just ask questions. In reference to Gene, he has been transferred from the Helen Simpson Rehab Facility last week in Harrisburg to Vibra Healthcare on Shepherdstown Road in Mechanicsburg, room 302. He's doing much better. He's gotten some more rest versus the intense therapy that he was getting over in Harrisburg, and he's doing therapy and getting rest there. So I just wanted to give you an update on him that he seems to really be doing much better right now. But yep, Kara?
Hey, Tim, would you guys be able to send us his mailing address to his room?
Mhm.
I mean, because we could all send him cards and that might help him as well.
Yep, I'll send that out to everybody today. Yep. All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up, talk about, chat about? If not, Bobby,
Let's go to work.
let's go to work. Listen, bye-bye.